1. Happened about a year ago. I still cringe and hide when I think about it. Fuck it. It's a fuck up. Last year I had recently got into construction, and being young, I wasn't that good at it, obviously due to experience. I started off working in demolition and was doing alright, breaking down walls, taking out insulation, smashing doors down, etc., etc. At the same time, I was also singing and looking for ways to improve. I wanted to pay for some lessons, and since demolition was paying me pretty good, I thought I'd find a good teacher. I found a lady who was teaching lessons at her house. Granted, she was expensive, but I thought she was a good fit. A month into the lessons, she tells me she can't do the lessons at her house because there is a leak in the roof, which got into the insulation inside the ceilings upstairs. Because it was an old house, this was causing mold and needed immediate attention. She kept rescheduling and telling me how much of a headache it was. I didn't mind too much about the rescheduling. I wasn't in a rush anyways. She called me a week after and had an interesting offer. She knew I did demolition work, so she asked if we could do a trade. I help her demo the upstairs. She gives me lessons in return. My demo rate equivalent to her teaching rate. I stopped her right away and let her know that I don't have much experience with demo, and that if things were to go wrong, I didn't want to be held responsible. She assured me this was an easy task and she would be right there directing me. After much convincing, I took the offer. Stupid mistake. When I got there, I could smell how bad the mold problem was. I brought a face mask so I wouldn't inhale anything, and got straight to work. I busted the top ceilings of the rooms and took out all the wet insulation. Luckily, the walls didn't need to be taken out because the water didn't seep in. So the only focus was the ceilings. A few days passed by, and she hired some kids to help me do some labor work. I was now in charge of about 4 to 5 people, making me feel like a true worker of my field. Every day I was killing it, getting so much work done, directing others. She was happy and kept telling me how great I was doing. The last day came, and what do you know? A huge fuck-up would come along with it. The ceilings were empty since the insulation was taken out in all rooms in the upstairs. From downstairs, she yelled my name when I came down. She threw me a water hose. What's this for? Clean the ceilings. Use some soap as well. I'll be back in a couple hours. I'm going to dump all the garbage to a yard. At the time, I didn't think much of it because I was doing something else. When I came down to do what she asked for, it didn't make sense. Why hose down a house? Wouldn't water get in? We're fighting a water problem right now. That doesn't make sense. I asked one of my workers and he said we should call her. I agreed. Hey, just a question. Are you sure you want me to spray the ceiling upstairs? Wouldn't water get in? You need to clean the ceiling. There might still be mold. But what if water gets in the walls? What? No, don't worry. That wouldn't happen. Haha. Guess I'm hosing down the house. I sprayed the house once and it blasted. The jet spray was on, way too strong. I changed the setting to sprinkle and started watering down the house. When I looked down, there was puddles on the floor messing up the wood. When I looked at the walls, there was bubbles popping out of the drywall in some parts. I stopped and got concerned. At the time, I was getting the workers to mop floors from the water quickly to prevent damage. She came about an hour after. Mind you, this was the last hour of this 7-day job that I did so well in, and her eyes were wide open. She realized I just watered down the whole upstairs. She screamed panic. Why did you do this? I thought this is what you told me to do. I meant put water in the bucket, put soap in the bucket, and use cloths to clean the ceiling, not hose the house down. She then had a huge mental breakdown, started bawling her eyes out profusely, and ran downstairs. The stress was so high she started getting a nosebleed. The workers there all looked at me like, wow, you fucked up. When she went downstairs, she screamed again. Water leaked all the way down to her basement. I sat there, silent, heart beating, fast knowing now that I may have cost this woman thousands in damages. I helped her finish the night and quickly got the fuck out of there. Even though I worked a total of 7 days straight, I couldn't go back to face her. So I basically worked those days for free. Haven't talked to her since. Talk about a fuck up. 2. Alright, so technically this happened during the end of my freshman year of college, around spring of 2013. Moving on. I was a film student, and one of our classes was a video editing making class. Our computer lab was being used by every film student that night to edit their final projects, since it was Sunday night and the next morning would be the start of finals week. Our project critique turn-in day. No one would sleep that night. It was around 3 or 4 a.m. My boyfriend of many years kindly brought us snacks to keep us from attempting death by iMac impalement or keyboard through the skull. He's a huge dude, 6'4", and works out 5 days a week. Solid as a goddamn moose that plays football on the side. This football playing moose has an exam in a few hours and needs some shut-eye, so he can't stay in the building with me any longer. I'm with friends, as he didn't want me to be in campus building alone at night, so I tell him to go back to the dorms for some rest. But before he does, he asks me if I can defend myself should anyone come in the building. We have stray people wander in sometimes, and one dude who swears he's Jim Morrison from The Doors with a comeback album after being in jail for years, and that he is in fact not dead as the media made people believe. I tell my moose boyfriend, yeah, let me show you how crazy good I am at self-defense. I'm 5'5" and 110 pounds of pure skeleton. He says, alright, punch my shoulder then. So I punch it. He laughs. I say, just watch, I'll punch you even harder the second time. He says, sure, go for it. And so I do. I punch him a second time on the shoulder. Now, let me pause and take the figurative red Sharpie marker to draw out a few details, like Kuzco from Emperor's New Groove. See, his shirt was made of that soft, kinda silky material, and was kinda baggy on him, since his clothes always shrink given his giantness. I also did not aim properly and made my arm not go as straight as it should have. Back to the story. As my toothpick wrist collides with the Berlin Wall of shoulders, it not only makes a weird thud, but it slips on his shirt material, downward, causing all my force to be put on my wrist and not my knuckles, hand. This pushes my wrist backward to what I thought made it sprained, but as doctors later revealed, I snapped my scaphoid bone. The scaphoid is between your thumb area and the wrist bones. It's like a connector in layman's terms. In pain and not realizing I broke my hand, I shake it a bit and complain, fuck dude, that really hurt my right hand. He asks if I'm okay, and I lie, say I'm fine, go home and sleep. I continue to edit with my right hand broken all night. I work through the pain. Around 6 a.m. day breaks and I go home to grab ounces of sleep before having to head back over around 9 a.m. for them to critique my crappy video made entirely in Final Cut 7 with nothing else but modified color squares to build shapes. I obviously wake up to terrible pain, a swollen wrist, hand, discolored to a taco shit yellow. I need something to stabilize it, and I don't have time to make a splint. And on the way to the video lab building, there is the campus clinic, pharmacy. Hoping they'll have gauze or something to purchase, I walk there as I cry, holding my wrist. They have nothing for me. Well, continue to class. I'm late. My professor still docks me points for being late. I sit through the class, with a t-shirt of Ice Cube seated onto my wrist. I walk around for 3 days before deciding this isn't a sprain and go to the doc. In the meantime, I had made a splint out of soy milk and juice box straws, duct tape, and an arm warmer. The doctors had a great laugh over my creation. At least that's one of us. In fear of being asked a bunch of those questions, I tell the docs I tripped over a step and slammed my hand against a brick wall instead of, I punched a guy. And now I suffer. they bring in a doc to talk one-on-one with me, asking if my home life is okay. Do I ever feel threatened or scared, etc., etc. I cry at the bus stop, waiting to go back to campus, while the homeless dude sleeps on a bench. Fast forward about a month. My grandmother's sister-in-law passes away. We're at a funeral. Up until this point, I don't know how to tell my mom how I broke my hand. I've got pretty bad anxiety, so doing everything takes me days of preparation mentally. This shit took weeks to muster up to say to her. We're at this funeral. And she's crying and all that, but she's mostly sad that her mom is sad. So I figure, well, she's already upset. How can I make it any worse? As the funeral proceeds and the family members take turns speaking about her, I lean over to my mom and whisper, So, I have something to tell you. Tearfully, she asks me what, and I explain how I actually broke my wrist, how I punched my boyfriend per request and challenge. Please keep in mind, my mom is a tough tomboy of a lady. She punched a kid when she was 8 or 9 for making fun of her friend, and he grew up to be a priest because that punch changed his whole perspective on life. Moving on. She stops crying. She twists her head over to me like a freaking owl on the prowl. I've never felt more fear from one stare than at that moment. The entire summer, May through late August, in a cast. I worked at a retail store, folding clothes. The Velcro from my cast would catch on them, and I'd have to do it over. All because my boyfriend brought us Pop-Tarts and juice, and I wanted to prove I was hardcore. Edit. Yep, we are still together. It'll be 6 years next January, currently July. And no, my mother didn't beat the crap out of me. Sorry if I wasn't clear enough. I meant for it to read off as she's a tough-as-nails lady and can give you the fear of death, and as if you dishonored your cow with one look. Should have made that clearer, sorry. It's what I get for writing at 3 AM, and yes, I have a high pain limit, or maybe just willpower. Last spring I had food poisoning and held the need to throw up for hours until my project presentation was completed. The more you know. 3. This happened during this week, but I hadn't been able to post it on here until now. My bedside table has a lamp, my phone, a full can of drink, and a bag of crisps on it. The lamp has a lead which runs down to the floor and is plugged into a 4-point extension plug, which I also use to charge my laptop, phone, and whatever else needs power. So I'm laying in bed, my mind fully on a game I'm playing on my laptop, when my phone rings. Normally, this wouldn't be a big deal. But because I'm so immersed in my game, I reach over without looking and promptly knock the lamp over, which in turn knocks everything else on the table over and sends the can of drink on a suicide run down the side of my bed. After much swearing and hurriedly picking up my phone and the lamp, it suddenly occurs to me that the Coca-Cola and electricity might not be the best combination in the world, and I instinctively reach down to pull the lead out. Unfortunately, despite having been told in childhood not to play with fire, run with scissors, talk to strangers, or indeed put my fingers near a live electrical socket, in the brief panic, all that common sense departs my brain, and I'm left grabbing down the side of the bed, frantically pulling at plugs that are dripping with sugary soda. It's roughly 3 or 4 seconds later when the most intense stinging pain I've ever felt in my life shoots through my hand, and by some miracle, I jerk my hand back as the entire plug makes a popping noise and starts to smell of charred plastic and burned fingertips. It's within those first few moments, somewhere between the thoughts of, oh my god, I'm still alive, and damn, I hope my laptop charger is okay, that a strange gurgling sound emanates from the depths of hell, known as my stomach. The human race has evolved for millennia to have a fight or flight instinct, and when faced with a massive scare, is well known for dropping its baggage at the first opportunity. So it is with great horror I realize as I lay there in my nice comfortable bed that my body has decided that now, of all times, would be the perfect moment to let rip with a stream of hot mushy diarrhea. Gee, thanks Anus, you really shouldn't have. As I struggle to my feet, I feel it emerging, like a beast from a pit, bursting its way into this world. I make it to my knees and look around. There's no way I'm going to get to the bathroom in time. And having to navigate the bedroom, the hallway, and a small set of stairs to the toilet seems like a challenge akin to climbing Mount Everest. There's only one thing I can do. I grab the bag of crisps and slam it against my erupting anus. But of course, the bag is far too small, and not even close to being properly positioned. And the horrific gush of shit swiftly overwhelms it like a flood. There has to be another way, I think, briefly considering my clothing, my bed sheets, or a pillowcase. Yes, thank you, pillowcase. I knew you would come in handy one day. The pillowcase, in its delicate cream and blue colouring, quickly joins the crisp packet. It won't hold long, but it seems to flow just long enough for me to make my escape. I run to the bathroom with the speed of the Flash, if the Flash was covered in his own poop, hurling myself towards the toilet at near light speed. 30 minutes later I emerge, in shock, but no longer spraying shit like a burst sewer pipe. I survey the damage. There's shit on my bed, down my legs, up my arms, across the floor. In fact, there's probably more areas of my bedroom covered with my own shit than I ever thought possible. I begin the long, slow, and disgusting job of clearing up, and think to myself, at least one thing came out of this. I can finally post something on TIFU. Oh, and I found out the phone call was just a marketing call after all that. Fuck my life. 4. Halloween night, 2004, on the coast of the Pacific Northwest. It was actually a surprisingly nice night for that time of year. A little foggy, but still relatively warm and dry. A few friends and I had in our possession some premium quality cubensis mushrooms. My particular bag of shrooms, roughly 7 or 8 grams, was actually from a separate batch that I had held onto for some 6 months or so. This will come into play later. My previous trip with these same mushrooms had been incredibly intense, and these were perhaps the strongest I had come across. We each ate all of the shrooms around sundown, so about 7 or 8 grams of cubensis to myself. And for the first few hours of the trip, we had a fantastic time. We walked all around the small coastal town we lived in, experiencing intense visuals, irrational outbursts of laughter and crying, supremely warped perceptions of reality, all the ingredients of a thorough trip. Eventually the three of us meandered our way back to my friend's house. We'll call him Ryan. Ryan's parents were the more laid-back types in terms of supervising us, so we used his basement as our kind of home base for the trip. Once back, we hung out in the pseudo-living room of the basement, sitting on the couch playing video games. Somewhere along the lines of sitting there, I start to feel sick. To this day, I still don't know if I was actually physically ill, or if my mind was coercing me into feeling that way. Rewinding back to the age of the mushrooms I mentioned earlier, for whatever reason, the fact that the mushrooms I ate were over 6 months old would not leave my mind. Had the mushrooms gone bad? Were they moldy? Does psilocybin convert into some sort of new poison over time? I'm going to die. As my mind began to unravel at the thought of my likely fabricated peril, I knelt down next to the couch. I didn't want to throw up, so this was my last attempt at calming my stomach. It wasn't working. A few moments after kneeling down, the unimaginable urge to vomit flooded my body. My mind instantly ordered, that I bolt for the sliding glass door toward the back of the basement, about 15 feet away, to avoid spewing all over my friend's floor. This is where the primary fuck-up occurs. In the throes of my mushroom trip, probably sick, but probably not. The immense force with which I stood up to run outside was apparently too much for my poisoned brain to handle. I had made it, what must have been 2 or 3 steps, before I passed out. My slightly oversized head toppled over as my body went limp, and fell with all its force, face first, into a cast iron wood stove located in the basement. Fortunately for me, this stove is never used, so I didn't melt my face off in addition to crushing it. I did, however, completely knock myself out, and experienced concussion number 1 for the night. I remember slowly coming to, sort of sitting and laying at the same time. I felt zero pain, but I was dizzy. My vision was blurry, and everything just felt off. As my eyes uncrossed, I see my friend Ryan standing there with a look on his face unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was fear, disgust, astonishment, and bewilderment all wrapped into one. I cleared my throat before muttering out, I think I'm alright, man. I'm sorry, what was... He cut me off. No, dude, your face, dude. Come with me. He helped me up, and slowly, he walked me to the basement bathroom. As we passed the stairway, his parents upstairs, whom heard a loud bang and thought something had broken, asked him if everything was okay. We both still hadn't come to terms with the severity of the situation yet, so he brushed them off. Finally, we reached the bathroom. He walks me in and turns me 90 degrees to the right, toward the mirror. Here is where concussion number 2 comes in. Anyone who has taken a proper amount of mushrooms and looked into a mirror knows that it can either be a pointless exercise with no effect other than the usual, or it can be one of the most mind-fucking experiences of your life. That night for me, it was the latter. I gazed at the outright havoc that was my face. My nose was essentially indented into my face, covered in blood. The effects of the mushrooms were amplifying every sensory input, and my imagination was behaving like it had just mainlined some meth. I had broken several orbital bones, which quasimodoed the expression on my face as I reacted to the carnage. This sight would have been a lot to handle with a clear mind, but during a mushroom trip, it was simply too much. I fainted once again, and this time I fell back and hit the back of my head on the toilet. Concussion number 2 was a bad one, and it took me a bit longer to come out of it. By now, Ryan's parents had heard yet another loud thud and came to investigate. I woke up to his mom holding my head, investigating the damage. By now, the swelling had really taken a toll, and I had bled quite a bit. Ryan told her what had happened, including the mushrooms, and I began pleading with her not to call my parents while I sat there on the floor. She was, still is, an awesome lady, and did her best to explain to me that I needed medical attention immediately. After a minute or two of me begging her not to call 911, I compromised with her and finally called my dad. A little background on my dad. This is a man who at the time was dealing with 2 very shithead sons. He had a breathalyzer, home urinalysis kits, the whole lot. Drug and alcohol were a hot button item in our family at the time, as my brother was beginning college after a rocky high school chapter, and I had accrued 2 MIPs in as many years. Not a guy that 16-year-old me wanted to explain that evening's events to. I get him on the phone and explain that I'd fallen, hurt my face very badly, and needed to go to the hospital. At that point he was concerned, but I still remember getting the sense that he knew there was more. I paused. Dad, there's another thing. What? I'm on mushrooms right now. Well, that's really fucking stupid. Ryan's parents eventually got me to my house, and my dad drove me to the ER. By now I'm having a meltdown, visuals are on overload, and I'm paranoid as hell. My dad is witnessing me trip balls while I hold an ice pack to my dented face. And we're headed to the fucking hospital. I start panicking in the car, so much that my dad had to suspend his anger with me. I remember him admitting that he had done mushrooms when he was in college, and how much of a relief that was to me. He at least understands what a mushroom trip is, thank God. The emergency room was surprisingly okay. Not nearly as bad as I envisioned when we embarked. I was still extremely paranoid, convinced that I would get in trouble with the law, kicked out of school, all chances of living a happy life were over, etc. Perhaps the luckiest aspect of the night was the ER doctor I got. I remember first thinking he had really long hair for a doctor, and then, as he was talking to my dad, I saw it, on his stethoscope, on the part where the two earpieces connect, with the listening instrument, was a Grateful Dead insignia. I had myself an honest-to-God hippie for my emergency room doctor. That was the first time that night since feeling sick that I began to feel like everything might turn out alright. He talked me through the paranoia, laughed a lot at me with my dad, and then sent me home with a referral to a surgeon and a bunch of Vicodin. Seriously, hippie doctor, man. If you're out there, God bless you. A few weeks later, I had facial reconstructive surgery and rhinoplasty. While the mushrooms had shielded me from the immense pain that I should have experienced that night, the pain I had in my nose after the surgery was unlike anything I have ever experienced. Fun fact about this type of injury to the nose: the swelling must go down before it can be repaired, which means bone and cartilage have already started to fuse together in an attempt to heal, albeit in a very mangled way, before surgery. The nose and septum are essentially rebroken and snapped back into place. Good times. Anyways, now 12 years later, my face is pretty much what it would be had I not decided to remodel it with a cast iron stove. I had an excellent surgeon to thank for that, actually two. I got into a bit of a scuffle at a concert a few years later, and had to have yet another operation on my nose. But that's a story for another day. 5. This weekend for my birthday, I decided to go to London Comic Con for the first time with my good friend Dee, a con veteran. Friday and Saturday were great days, characterized by drinking, smoking, and meeting all sorts of awesome people. Dee knew plenty of people there, so I got introduced to them, made delightful new friends, and wandered around in awe of all the fantastic cosplays and cool shit to do. On the Friday night, Dee got given a spliff laced with some weird shit by an otherkin, and had a very bad time, but that's another story. On the Saturday night, for me this time, things went badly wrong. In front of the convention center is a small green where there's a music stage and people sit around drinking and partying in general until the early hours. We were out there drinking ourselves into a stupor when I noticed a large crowd of people standing in a circle, cheering and catching the eye of security. I decided to go check it out, and was greeted by an organized fighting ring officiated by Professor Snape. The rules were simple: no striking, and if you get someone on their back, you win. Sounds like fun, right? Well, it wasn't. I was doing a half-hearted Superman cosplay, t-shirt plus cape, and in my altered state may have believed I was more like the Man of Steel than a drunken guy of distinctively average build. I ran back to the group of people I was with and shouted, "I'm gonna get myself hurt for the respect of people I don't know." Professor Snape was only too happy to oblige me, pitting me against a guy dressed as Solid Snake. This should have been my first warning. You don't fuck with Solid Snake. Surprisingly, we were pretty evenly matched. We were both scrappy, and we were both going for the old leg lift trip technique. I was considerably drunker than him, so swiftly lost my balance, tripping backwards, reconciling myself to my fate. Unfortunately, my cape proved to be my kryptonite. Snake tripped on it, falling forward over me with his knee extended. I half remember what happened next. My right ball was caught between his very solid knee and the floor. This hurt. It hurt a lot. Writhing in agony, I put on my bravest smile, shook the desperately apologizing Snake's hand, and limped back to my group, laughing at my own misfortune. My new friends were only too happy to join me. Half an hour later, the pain hadn't gone. An hour later, the pain hadn't gone. My old friend D is a medical professional. He said, "Dude, you're fine." I wasn't fine. I was pretty fucking far from fine. I limped back to our hotel a mile away, cradling my rapidly swelling ball sack. I took some painkillers and passed out. On waking up in the morning, I looked inside my pants and was greeted with what looked like an aubergine, eggplant, perched on top of a red onion. I called down from the bunk. "D, how good of a friend are you?" "Very, I'd say." "Will you take a look at my dick?" I whipped it out, and the look of horror on his face told me all I needed to know. My dick and balls were entirely purple and monstrously swollen. I was in agony. "Go to the hospital, now." I wasn't going to argue. 12 hours later, having been given an extraordinary amount of painkillers and ultrasound, urine and blood tests, I was driven via ambulance to a surgical ward in the next county. In my drug-induced haze, I remembered snatches of conversation. "Think we can save the testicle? Lacerations, blood clot, crushed, swollen." Waking up in the morning after passing out for the second night in a row, I was told that, while it had been close, the doctor thought I would be keeping my now egg-sized right ball. He would, however, have to apply what he referred to as a scrotal turban. I was discharged, miles from London, and had to limp across much of the city, cradling my elephantine turban-clad scrotum in order to catch the train home. I missed all of the Sunday of Comic-Con, and didn't gain any respect at all as far as I can tell. And that is why I'm off work with a mummified man purse and pumped full of codeine. My first con. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to my latest TIFU video. Sorry it's been a while since I did the last one. I have been sending messages out, but you know, it's... not everyone wants their story read, and not everyone gets back to you in time. So, massive thanks to the 5 people who allowed me to use their stories this week. I've kind of missed doing these videos. Should have found it a lot of fun. Okay. Right, I'm still taking questions for the Q&A. I'll be doing that for about 1 more week, then I'll put everything together and record it. So if you have your questions, get them in, leave them in the comments, Twitter, Facebook, whatever works for you, and I will do my best to answer them. I just had a look at my subscriber numbers there. It looks like I'm actually getting very close to 12,000 as of recording this. So maybe by the time you see this, I'll have hit it. Who knows? So if you're one of my new subscribers, welcome aboard. And to all my old subscribers, thank you very much for sticking with me and getting me this far. Okay. I think that's about it for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.